You know, that really unsettling feeling, like you're sort of detached from yourself, or maybe the world around you just doesn't feel quite solid. It can be pretty disturbing.
Hmm. Definitely.
And what we want to unpack today is why those feelings, you know, depersonalization, feeling cut off from yourself, or derealization, where the world seems unreal, why they can get so much stronger, specifically when we're like interacting with other people.
Exactly. We've been looking at this really useful resource. It focuses specifically on this, how to navigate these feelings when you're in social situations.
Right.
And one of the first things that really stands out is just how common it is for these feelings to ramp up precisely when you're trying to connect. It seems almost backwards, doesn't it?
It really does. You'd think being around people would, I don't know, make you feel more connected, maybe more grounded.
Mm.
But like the document we looked at highlights, for a lot of people, it's the opposite. Social situations make everything feel particularly strange, weird, unreal.
Yeah. And understandably, as the resource notes, this often leads people to start avoiding social contact altogether, just as a way to escape those really intense, uncomfortable feelings.
Which makes sense in the moment, of course.
Totally. Who wouldn't want to retreat from something that feels that unsettling?
Yeah.
But that avoidance, while it gives you that temporary relief, well, that's something we really need to get into.
Okay.
Because the resource is pretty clear. If you consistently avoid social stuff, it can unfortunately kind of create this downward spiral. It leads to more isolation, feeling even more detached from life in general.
Okay, so let's dig into that feeling a bit more. This idea of things being particularly strange when we're with others. Does the source give any clues about why that might happen, why the intensification?
Well, what's fascinating and what the document suggests is a possible link to increased cognitive load.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, your brain working overtime.
Cognitive load, like thinking too hard.
Sort of, yeah. It suggests that people experiencing these feelings often have to concentrate incredibly hard just to follow conversations, pick up on social cues, maintain what feels like a normal appearance.
Wow. Okay.
And all this extra mental effort, the thinking goes, might actually make those pre-existing feelings of detachment even worse.
Mm.
Some people describe it as feeling foggy, like their brain is full of cotton wool, making it really hard to think clearly.
That sounds absolutely exhausting. Just trying to keep up.
It is. And the resource also touches on something else, that very real fear of being noticed.
Hmm.
This worry that other people can somehow see this internal strangeness.
Ah, right. Like, do they know something's wrong with me?
Precisely. So you become hyper aware of yourself, constantly checking, am I acting weird? Do I look strange?
Another layer of stress.
Exactly. It has this whole other layer of anxiety. And like the document rightly points out, all this mental effort, the concentration, the worry,
Hmm.
it often leads to just feeling completely wiped out afterwards, serious post-interaction fatigue.
So you need recovery time after just like hanging out with friends.
Yeah, for some people, absolutely. The sheer effort involved can leave them feeling totally drained.
Okay, so you're stuck in this really difficult spot. You're struggling inside to feel present, to feel real, but at the same time, you're incredibly worried about appearing like you're struggling.
Mm-hmm.
It's no wonder the instinct is just to withdraw, to stay home.
Right. But as we touched on, the source really emphasizes that this avoidance, yeah, it gives immediate relief,
Hmm.
but it can create a much bigger problem down the line.
Right. The long-term consequences.
Yes, the document spells it out. Staying home might lessen the feelings temporarily, but long term. You risk losing social connections, pulling back from life, and, well, facing real loneliness. It becomes a trap.
Which raises the big question then, how do you break out of that? If avoidance isn't the answer long-term, what can you do?
Well, thankfully, the source offers some really practical tips, 6 of them, actually, for navigating these social situations.
Okay, let's hear them. What's the first one?
The first one is, I think, incredibly powerful. It's basically your inner experience is invisible to other people.
Invisible. Okay. So what I'm feeling inside, they can't see it.
Pretty much. It's a reminder that those intense feelings, the strangeness, the unreality, they're internal. People on the outside generally have no idea unless you actually tell them.
That's kind of comforting, actually. It takes some pressure off.
It really can. And the second tip builds right on that. It's carry out experiments.
Experiments. Like in a lab coat?
No, not quite. More like testing your assumptions. The idea is to consciously check if there's any real evidence that people are noticing your internal state.
So pay attention to how people actually react to me.
Exactly. Observe them. The resource predicts that most of the time you'll probably find very little, if any, proof that they perceive anything unusual about your inner world. You're challenging that fear directly.
Okay, actively look for the evidence,
Right.
or lack thereof.
Got it.
What's tip number 3?
Tip 3 brings in a bit of perspective. Everyone seems strange sometimes,
Okay, that's relatable.
isn't it? It's just normalizing things. People aren't perfect robots. Everyone has off days, awkward moments, says weird things sometimes. So if you feel a bit off or act slightly unusually because you're feeling detached, it's probably not going to make all your friends run for the hills.
Right, we're probably much harder on ourselves than others are.
Very likely.
Yeah.
It's about remembering that social interactions are messy for everyone sometimes, not just you.
Makes sense. Okay, number 4.
This one's about reclaiming some agency. Don't let the unpleasant feelings inside you take over.
Okay, easier said than done sometimes, maybe.
For sure. But the point is, even though these feelings are really unpleasant, disturbing even, you still have the right to have a social life. The advice is basically, don't let these feelings dictate your choices. Try to socialize anyway, even when it feels hard.
So act despite the feeling, not wait for it to go away.
Exactly. It's about choosing your actions based on your values, like connecting with people, rather than letting the feeling call all the shots. That can be really empowering.
I can see that. Okay, tip 5.
Tip 5 gives a really concrete strategy for during social interactions. Focus on something else. Or maybe focus outward,
Outward, meaning.
meaning shift your attention away from your internal state. People experiencing this often get very caught up in thinking about the feelings, analyzing them.
Becomes the main focus.
Right. So the advice is actively shift your focus to your surroundings, to the details of the conversation you're having, to the people you're actually with. Try to, put the analysis of the weird feelings aside for later.
So engage with the external world more directly.
Yeah, it's a practical technique. By engaging with what's actually happening outside of you, you can often lessen the intensity of the internal stuff, at least temporarily. Give yourself a break from that intense self-focus.
Okay, that's a good practical one. And the last tip, number 6.
The final tip is really important for reassurance. These feelings are normal and widespread.
Normal, really, because they can feel so isolating and strange.
They can feel that way, absolutely. But the resource reminds us that brief experiences of depersonalization and derealization, they're actually pretty common in the general population. Lots of people have felt this at some point.
Okay.
So it encourages a bit of openness, maybe even talking about it. You might find that sharing these feelings leads to understanding, support. You might be surprised how many people say, oh yeah, I've felt something like that too, even if they don't use the same labels.
Wow. So you're not alone in this. That's huge.
It really is.
Yeah.
It fights that feeling of being uniquely weird or broken. Knowing others share this can be incredibly validating.
Okay, so putting it all together. Yes, these feelings of unreality in social settings, they can be really intense, really difficult, and that urge to avoid them is totally understandable. But digging into this, it seems understanding what might be going on, like the cognitive load, the fear, and having these practical strategies that can actually make a real difference in navigating it.
Absolutely. It gives you tools, it gives you perspective. It moves you away from just reacting with avoidance.
Yeah, and it kind of leads to a final thought, maybe something for you, the listener, to mull over. Consider this. If you were to intentionally try that tip, shifting your focus outward in a social setting, what might happen? Beyond just potentially easing the unreality for a bit, how might it actually, enrich your experience? What new details, what different perspectives might you notice about the world, about the people you're with when your attention isn't quite so locked inside?